before a single transistor is etched, before a wafer is loaded, before a fab quotes a price, the chip has to be drawn. Every logic gate, every interconnect, every timing relationship committed to software. And for decades, that software has been American. One license, one vendor, one switch that someone in Washington can flip. In approximately early 2025, they flipped it. And then, roughly 6 weeks later, they flipped it back. If your instinct right now is that software is easy to replace, hold that thought. Electronic design automation is not a word processor. The sign-off layer that tells you a design will actually survive silicon is 40 years of compounded engineering, layered and interdependent in ways that are not cloned in a sprint. Understanding why that is true is the key to understanding what happened when the switch was thrown. This matters because electronic design automation is not a product. It is the permission slip. Control the sign-off flow, and you control which chips get made and which stay a slide deck. China's chip ambitions, its artificial intelligence hardware push, its advanced logic roadmap, all of it runs through this software layer. By the time you reach the end of this, you will understand exactly what domestic Chinese design tools can and cannot do today, why the ban reversal was a demonstration of leverage rather than a solution, and what the gap between China's rising floor and a foreign-held ceiling actually means for the next decade of compute. This is not a story about software piracy or a technical curiosity. It is a story about who holds the pen that authorizes a chip to exist, and whether China has taken that pen, borrowed it, or is still waiting for someone abroad to hand it back. Start with what electronic design automation actually is, because most people have no idea how deep this stack goes. It is not one application, it is a layered flow: schematic capture, simulation, place and route, physical verification, and finally, sign-off. Each layer is a dependency for the next. Think of it like the certification chain for a bridge. Architects draw it, engineers calculate the loads, contractors build it. But the structural sign-off, the official stamp that says this bridge will not fall under real conditions, is issued by a licensed body whose certification every regulator and insurer requires. You can draw the bridge without that stamp. You cannot open it to traffic. In chip design, sign-off is that stamp. It is the mathematical proof that a design will behave correctly in real silicon, at temperature, at voltage, across the natural variation in how atoms arrange themselves differently on every wafer. Without sign-off confidence, a chip is a hypothesis, not a product. And right now, the bodies issuing the most trusted stamps in the world are Synopsys and Cadence, two American companies that together hold the large majority of the global electronic design automation market. Siemens also competes through its Mentor acquisition. But at the leading edge, Synopsys and Cadence are the ones whose names appear on the certification that foundries and customers accept. A failed tape-out at a leading-edge node, meaning you get through the entire design process, send your files to the fab, and the chip comes back wrong, costs tens of millions of dollars and months of schedule. That is the economic weight behind sign-off confidence. It is not a formality. It is the reason the foreign pen matters. Now, the open question: can China draw anything at home yet? The honest answer is yes. And that answer deserves real credit before you understand where it ends. Empyrean Technology, known in Chinese as Huada Jiutian, is China's leading domestic electronic design automation firm. It is listed on the Shanghai STAR Market, has been building out its tool suite for roughly a decade, and is reported to cover key parts of the design flow at process nodes of 7 nanometers and above, specifically in analog and custom layout, and parts of the digital flow. Analyst assessments suggest this capability is credible enough for production use at mature nodes. That has not been independently confirmed at scale by Western sources, so the right framing is: the evidence is company reported and analyst estimated, and it is taken seriously enough by people who follow this industry closely that dismissing it would be wrong. What does 7 nanometers and above actually mean in practical terms? If you're designing a chip for a car's power management system, an industrial sensor, a base station radio, or the control logic in an appliance, those are mature node designs with tolerances that can be measured in tens of nanometers rather than single digits. You can now draw those designs at home in China. The floor that used to be a basement is at street level. That took roughly a decade of sustained investment to achieve, accelerated after the United States restricted exports to Huawei beginning in 2019 and intensified those controls in subsequent years. This is a real, meaningful achievement. It removes foreign leverage from a substantial slice of China's chip design activity. And it is not where the story ends, because 7 nanometers and above is not the same as the full design flow, and it is not where the hardest contest lives. The viewer objection that comes here, and it is a fair one, is: if domestic electronic design automation works at 7 nanometers, why does any Chinese design house still reach for foreign tools? Because 7 nanometers and above coverage is not full flow coverage. The verification and sign-off tools, the ones that certify a leading-edge design is ready to go to the fab, are still dominated by foreign vendors. And the intellectual property libraries that get bundled into those flows, memory compilers, standard cell libraries, interface physical layer implementations, are not yet matched domestically at the leading edge. The floor China raised covers the rooms where most of the furniture lives. The ceiling it cannot yet reach is where the penthouse is built. And right now, the penthouse is where artificial intelligence compute is designed. Which brings us to the exact moment we know the ceiling is still intact. And what that moment actually proved. In approximately early 2025, the United States moved to restrict electronic design automation software exports to China. This was an extension of the export control logic that had already been applied to chip manufacturing hardware, now applied to the software layer that sits above the hardware. The precise dates of imposition and reversal are not confirmed with specificity in the public record, so the right framing is approximate. What is reported across trade and policy press that covers this space closely is that the restriction was reversed or substantially relaxed roughly 6 weeks after it was imposed. The timing of that reversal coincided with a period of heightened rare earth export pressure from China. Beijing had moved to restrict exports of rare earth materials that are critical to Western defense and technology manufacturing. The connection between those rare earth moves and the electronic design automation reversal is a reasoned inference from the concurrence. It has not been officially confirmed by either government. The timing suggests leverage was applied. It does not prove the causal chain. But here is what is not in dispute. And this is the part that tells you everything you need to know about where the real choke point sits. In the window between the ban and its reversal, no Chinese design house publicly announced that it had switched to a domestic tool for its leading-edge flows. No announcement of, "We moved to Empyrean for our 7 nanometer and below tape-out pipeline." No statement of independence. The response from Beijing was diplomatic and economic pressure until the license came back. That is the action of a government that knows exactly where the ceiling is, and chose to push on the lever it had rather than sprint for the ladder it doesn't. The switch metaphor from the beginning of this story is paid off right here. The switch was flipped. Someone pushed back with what leverage they had, and it was unflipped. The sequence is the proof. To understand why the ceiling cannot be quickly domesticated, you need one more layer: the process design kit. This is the piece that makes the sign-off dependency almost invisible until it is gone. A process design kit is not generic engineering software. It is a Foundry-specific data package that describes exactly how silicon behaves at that particular node, at that particular fab, under those specific process conditions. The exact electrical characteristics of transistors, the exact geometric rules for metal layers, the exact variation models that tell you how much the physics drifts from wafer to wafer. Think of it like the building code for a specific city. Not generic structural engineering principles, but the exact rules for this soil composition, this seismic zone, this utility infrastructure. The best architect in the world cannot get a building permitted in that city without the local code. And the local inspector will not sign off on something built to foreign standards. Synopsys and Cadence receive process design kits from leading foundries, TSMC in Taiwan, Samsung in South Korea, under strict licensing agreements. Their sign-off tools are calibrated to those kits. That calibration is what makes the stamp mean something. A domestic Chinese electronic design automation tool without a certified process design kit for TSMC's leading nodes cannot produce a tape-out that TSMC will accept. Full stop. China's most advanced domestic foundry, SMIC, is reported to have reached approximately 7 nanometers equivalent with its N+1 and N+2 process generations. That is a company claim and an analyst estimate. It has not been confirmed at volume comparable to what TSMC produces. And even taking it at face value, that node is not where the leading-edge artificial intelligence accelerators are fabbed. NVIDIA's H100, for example, is produced at TSMC's 4 nanometer process. Advanced inference chips require sub-7 nanometer capability. The ceiling is not just the software. It is the software foundry process design kit triangle, and foreign players control that triangle together. Can China develop its own process design kits for SMIC's nodes? Yes, and that work is underway. But a process design kit is only as useful as the node it describes. The domestic fab EDAPDK triangle is still behind the frontier, and the frontier keeps moving. So step back and ask what the floor China raised actually buys, and where the gap matters most. Mature nodes, broadly speaking at 28 nanometers and above, cover the large majority of global chip unit volume by count. Automotive chips, industrial controllers, power management integrated circuits, the radio frequency silicon in every wireless device, the microcontrollers in every connected appliance. These are all mature node designs. China can now draw a substantial portion of these at home without relying on a foreign license that can be revoked in Washington. That is not a trivial achievement. It is the economic core of the global chip market in many segments, and it insulates a large part of China's domestic design activity from export control pressure. The gap only becomes critical at the leading edge. Sub-7 nanometer nodes where artificial intelligence training silicon, advanced inference chips, and the next generation of smartphone processors are designed. That is a smaller slice of global unit volume, but a disproportionate share of strategic value, margin, and the kind of compute that shapes what artificial intelligence systems can do. The floor. China raised covers most of what it builds by volume. The ceiling it cannot yet reach is where the next decade of leverage lives. Here is my honest read. The people who say China has solved its electronic design automation problem are wrong. The leading-edge sign-off dependency is real. The process design kit triangle is intact. And the ban then unban episode proved Beijing felt the choke point rather than bypassed it, because the response was geopolitical pressure, not a domestic tool announcement. But the people who say domestic electronic design automation is theater are also wrong. A decade of sustained investment has raised the floor to a level that genuinely reduces foreign leverage across the majority of China's chip design activity. These are not the same story told twice. They are two different things happening at the same time, at different levels of the stack. The tell is in what Beijing did when the switch was flipped. It did not accelerate a domestic replacement for the leading-edge flow. It applied rare earth pressure until the switch was unflipped. That is a government that knows exactly where its ceiling is and is buying time while the floor keeps rising toward it. China has raised its design floor high enough to protect most of what it builds today. The ceiling, the leading-edge sign-off, the process design kit, the process node where frontier compute lives, is still controlled by others. The floor rising and the ceiling staying foreign is not a stable equilibrium. Something moves next. The question is, which side moves faster? Here is what I want your read on. Beijing's response to the electronic design automation ban was to apply rare earth pressure until the license came back, not to sprint toward a domestic replacement at the leading edge. Does that tell you the choke point is so deep that no realistic domestic effort closes it in the relevant time frame? Or does it tell you that geopolitical leverage is simply the faster and more rational path when you already have rare earth cards to play, and the domestic electronic design automation investment continues underneath regardless? I genuinely want your answer, and specifically, which of those two reads you think the evidence supports, in the comments. If you want to follow how this specific contest plays out, the floor rising, the ceiling holding, the next license decision, subscribe. That is exactly what this channel tracks. Before the first transistor is etched, the chip has to be drawn. Right now, China can draw more of them at home than it could 5 years ago. The pen for the ones that matter most is still abroad. That gap is the story, and it is not finished.